And the thing that they love about you is the actual, like, inside part of you. Not in a funny way, but in a, like, figurative soul kind of way. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or hi, welcome if you're new. My name's Mickey. I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapy things on this channel. And today we're talking about some tips to make your sex life better, either with other people or with yourself, because we talk an awful lot about awful and bad sex advice on this channel. And I think that it is a dick move to shit on other people, but then not give your own good advice. So I'm giving my own good advice today. The things that I'm going to share with you are collected from my clinical experience, but also other places on the internet and other experts in this area. I will make sure to link everybody that I reference or talk about or drew research or inspiration or what have you from in the description. Sometimes I do forget to do that, and you guys do call me out on it, so thank you. If I forget to do that, just be like, hey, you forgot to do that, and I'll make sure to do that. I don't think we should really gild the lily. Let's just get into the thing. Okay, let's talk about mental framing. This is particularly common for cis women in an effort to be inclusive, by the way, because we try to do that here. I did look up some research about whether or not this is applicable to trans folks, and it seems like it might be. We have very limited research about this, to be clear, mostly because research is not inclusive, but bless up, there are some folks who are trying to be inclusive, and so I'll link that in the description. But it seems like this might hold true for trans women as well. This pattern of, like, finding mental framing to be either necessary or very helpful in the pursuit of arousal. Again, very limited research and also somewhat exclusionary research about non-binary or other genderqueer folks, but for what it's worth, I wanted to put that out there. So let's talk about what mental framing is actually, and like what that means. Mental framing is basically all of the surrounding stuff around, like, a desire to or the initiating behavior around having sex, right? This is about, like, the actual sexual arousal. For somebody with spontaneous desire, we've talked about spontaneous versus responsive desire. In case you're new, spontaneous desire is like walking down the street and all of a sudden I'm really horny and want to have sex, right? Responsive desire is somebody rubbing your back or candlelit dinner or, reading erotica. And now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I think I want to have sex, right? For folks with responsive desire, mental framing is going to be really helpful because instead of somebody saying, hey, do you want to fuck? Which is not really going to help very much for somebody with responsive desire. This is the, I want to plan a nice date night or rub your back or, I don't know, let's put a fantasy that you have had into action, right? And so maybe there are particular things that we want to try or things that we need to, like, situate in our environment, especially for folks who have kids, right? Like somebody needs to watch them, for example. But all of that foundational work adds up to this environment that feels very sexy and alluring and fun and, like, pleasure-based. And so being mindful of the mental framing around sex can really be incredibly helpful for folks in experiencing an increase in libido, in desire to have sex, in receptiveness to your partner coming on to you or trying to initiate sex. Because if your partner's trying to initiate it in this very, like, either we're doing it or we're not kind of way, that can create, first of all, a feeling of pressure, which we're going to talk about in a second, but it's also lacking the mental framing around it, right? Before we move on, I want to talk to you about this week's sponsor, which is Beducated. We know Beducated. We love Beducated here. In case you don't know Beducated, they are an online platform that is dedicated to all things sex and relationship learning, and there is so much sex and relationship learning on this platform. Beducated has over 100 courses about sex and intimacy. When I tell you that they have so much information on this platform, as a person with many intersecting identities, I feel very seen on the platform, and I love that about them. But what I love most of all is that the information is safe, it's reliable, and it is led by industry experts, and we all know how much I love safe and reliable and fact-based information, so we love Beducated for that. I have told you guys about the many courses that I have taken on Beducated. Lately, I have been revisiting the ones that I really loved, like the guided masturbation course, because I think a little bit of self-love goes a long way in being our best selves. And so I've been really enjoying revisiting that. And it's also explicit and specific, but not pornographic. It doesn't feel objectifying. And as a person who needs visual examples sometimes, I love that about them. So go click the link in the description. You can use my code Mickey Atkins for 50% off the annual pass. Beducated also has a 14-day money-back guarantee. So go check that out. Make sure that you show them some love for showing me some love. Show yourself some love. And thank you very much to Beducated for sponsoring this week's video. Let's go ahead and hop back in. For a lot of folks, fantasy is going to be relevant here because I think it's not a coincidence that folks in this category often are drawn to things like audio erotica or written porn, things like that, because they're sexy, right? Because we spend 30 pages building up to this moment that's very sexy and fun and like this release of pressure, and it's very exciting. Like that's what mental framing is, right? All those 30 pages before your favorite characters in an erotica actually do the thing. That's what mental framing is. So talking with your partner and saying, hey, I want to try incorporating some greater buildup in our sex life, or being more mindful of our environment, right? I don't just want to have sex on our plain old bed. I want to have candles, and I want to put a satin sheet down, and I want to wear lingerie, and I want you to rub my back, and I want the room to smell nice. All of that can be mental framing. Speaking of the pressure around saying yes to sex when your partner comes on to you, I want to talk about something that I saw in an Instagram reel. I will put that in the description. I don't know that creator necessarily has stuff that I agree with 100% all of the time, but this particular piece of content kind of changed my life because their advice was to incorporate saying maybe when your partner tries to come on to you, right? I think especially for folks who have been subjected to misogyny, the expectation is that you either should say yes when your partner comes on to you, or that if you say yes and then change your mind, that you're being a tease, or that you're being mean to your partner, that that's not a kind thing to do, or that there's something wrong with you if your partner wants to have sex with you and you don't want to, or you're not sure if you want to, that maybe you don't like your partner that much, you're not attracted to them, or you're lacking in libido altogether and you're broken. All of these things sort of rattle around in the brains of these folks. And so it can feel very like stressful in that moment because maybe I'm not sure, right? Maybe there's like 55 million things on my mind because the general state of affairs is really not very good right now. And my personal life is stressful, or my friend was being a dick to me today, or I have a lot of stuff going on at work, or our kids are being really fucking annoying, right? And our house is dirty and I'm stressed out. There's a lot of stuff going on. So you slapping my butt right now and being like, hey, do you want to have sex? Is like, I don't know. And so like mental framing, like we just talked about, but also this advice of saying, I don't know, maybe, like reflecting inward and saying, could I be open to that? And if you are, saying, maybe let's try warming up first and see what happens, right? Because if after we do some warming up and we do some foreplay and I am feeling like, oh yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, I'm into this. Let's do that. Then you can have, what people traditionally conceptualize as sex in a hetero context. But if you're not feeling open to it, or let's say that you do a little bit of making out or hand stuff or mouth stuff, and then you're like, I think I'm done. I think this is okay. I think I'm done here. Then you can just communicate that to your partner. A lot of people have the question of like, well, what's your partner supposed to do? Use a toy, take care of themselves, simply cuddle you and respect the fact that every time that we have an erotic or sexual or intimate interaction, that it's not always going to lead to orgasm, and that shouldn't make sex less pleasurable for you, because that's part of being in an adult relationship, is respecting the fact that your partner is not a thing to be used to bring you to orgasm, and that our intimate experiences with one another are valuable regardless of the end result, maybe. I think all of that is really important to keep in mind. So I want to encourage you to explore this in your sex life if the pressure around saying yes is feeling like a barrier to you experiencing intimacy and sexual pleasure with your partner. Because if it is, it's something that can be transformative, again, in creating the space for you to also challenge the very misogynistic and gross attitudes around putting out, essentially. Oh, also, for what it's worth, this is a great exercise in being grounded in your body as well. If you are a person who tends to struggle with viewing sex as a performance rather than an experience, this can be a great way for you to practice the skill of being grounded in your body and asking yourself, how do I really feel in my body right now? Not what do I think I should be doing? What do I think I look like in this moment? What do I think, my partner thinks of this? But what is my body telling me right now? A great exercise, especially if we're struggling with that respect in regard to like sex and intimacy. So good for that as well. Okay, the third thing that I want to talk to you about is novelty. This is going to be particularly useful for those of you that have ADHD or inattention issues, which we've talked about in a past video. I'll put that up here. But incorporating newness, novelty, fun in your sex life is going to go a long way in making the experience, first of all, feel more fun and more interesting, but also in creating a new sense of shared fun and vulnerability between you and your partner. This is sometimes just as simple as like new literal sensations, right? Sensation play, meaning like the smell, the sound, the feel, the touch, the taste of things. This can also include some things like positions or techniques or locations, right? For a lot of folks who are in long-term relationships and have been sexual with one another for a very long time, you can find yourself in this routine where like we have sex in a particular way, right? And maybe we start a particular way and then we end the thing in a particular way and then we finish the thing in a particular way and then that's just what our sex life looks like, right? It can start to feel very predictable. And so saying, hey, do you want to have sex on the couch? Can be a thing that's interesting and new, and maybe that's not going to work out, or maybe it's something you try and then you're like, I really didn't like that. Or you try it and you say, I don't like this in the middle of it, and you try something different. But the novelty around that is something that can create a lot of fun and especially can create playfulness and silliness, which is so, so, so important in a healthy and thriving sex life, because if we view sex as a performance, like we've talked about in the past, we can pressure ourselves to be very serious, and I'm so seductive and I'm like so cool, and like you're not supposed to be. You don't have to be cool in order for your sex life to be good or in order for your partner to like you. Having a good giggle because maybe you tried to have sex on the couch and your back hurts and like this is just not working for my 30-year-old back. That's totally fine. It's a fun thing. It's a silly thing. And even that is adding novelty and newness into your sex life. Beducated can also be a wonderful tool for brainstorming in this respect, by the way. If you're feeling a little bit stuck and you need some inspiration, Beducated has your back. I also want to talk about how important it is to get comfortable with yourself. The shame that we experience around our body size, our body shape, around our appearance generally can very much be a barrier to us experiencing joy and pleasure and intimacy in our sex life, because it quite literally is a barrier to intimacy. When we struggle with that shame, it's going to mean that we feel scared of vulnerability and of really letting people in. So sometimes this can manifest as like, I want to have sex with the lights off only, mostly because I'm terrified of you seeing my body, right? Sometimes this can mean that we just have sex, again, in a very particular way, in a very particular position, or maybe wearing particular clothes because we are just ashamed of that. Or sometimes this can just mean that you're really in your head while you're having sex, rather than being in your body, being grounded in sensation and trying to like surrender yourself to pleasure. You're thinking a lot about, do I look a particular way? Is this flattering for me? What does my partner think about this? Is this angle bad for me? All of those things are going to be distancing you from sexual pleasure, which can mean then that we might experience difficulty in our sex life and sexual connection with a partner. I want to remind you that your body is not a currency that you use to bargain with a partner in order to achieve like belonging or approval or being allowed to be in a relationship, right? It's not a thing that you can dispense to keep a partner around. Your body is just simply your body. And any partner who is a good partner to you should absolutely love and celebrate and eat up, literally and figuratively, the body that you have now, the body that you will have in 10 years, the body that you did have 10 years ago, because your body is just your body. And the thing that they love about you is the actual like inside part of you, not in a funny way, but in a like figurative soul kind of way. I also want to encourage people to keep an eye on the fear of like, am I good in bed thing. This might not show up quite as often in super long-term relationships, but sometimes it is still an anxiety and a fixation that will show up for folks, particularly around the bringing your partner to orgasm thing. This can be a difficult issue for folks to get past, because the feeling is that if I'm not able to bring my partner to orgasm, therefore I'm bad in bed. And so we might spend all this time looking up like techniques and positions and all these things, trying to find like a magic bullet, right? And the truth is that maybe your partner struggles with getting to orgasm. Maybe you're struggling with getting to know your partner's body. Maybe it just didn't happen that time. And that's fine, right? Again, orgasm is not a thing that is a foregone conclusion about all sexual interactions, first of all. And it is not a sign that you are good in bed, right? Orgasm is not a trophy for you to carry around and show all your friends that like, look, I'm good in bed. It's something that should happen naturally as a part of a sexual experience if it happens. And that's perfectly fine, especially in a world where folks with vulvas, vaginas, clitorises will struggle with orgasm statistically in relationships with cisgender men. There's a huge orgasm gap there for those male partners to be fixated on like, I need you to orgasm in order for me to be worthy. Then it's not really about your partner's pleasure, is it? It's about you. It's about your ego and your need to feel validated. That's not kind, that's not loving, and that's not actually centering your partner's pleasure. You would be much better off and much better in bed, which I don't think is a thing anyways, but you would be much better in bed if you actually let go of the expectation around that and just focused on being in the moment and being responsive to what your partner likes, dislikes, what they're feeling, what they're not feeling, what it seems like they're receptive to, what their actual answer is about what they're liking when you just ask them in bed. All of those things are going to be a much better, tool. That's a terrible word, but I can't think of another one. A much better technique, I guess, for you in terms of wanting to be a good partner to your partner or partners sexually. Also, if your partner is that person, if you're watching this video, but your partner is that person, feel free to send them here. I'll give them the talk too. I want to encourage you. The last thing we want to talk about is to take care of yourself. I know that this is cliche advice and it's very annoying probably coming from a therapist. And probably not what you came here for, but it is very important still, and I want to talk to you about why. I think for most people, it's probably like a logical conclusion that anxiety and stress in your life doesn't really equal an availability for sex and intimacy and orgasm and pleasure, because those things are kind of competing in your brain for space. And we know from research that anxiety and stress is correlated with a decrease in libido, and that can be a barrier for folks, right? So in the pursuit of taking care of yourself and helping to, help your brain process things, I want to encourage you, especially in these times, to take breaks from media, from social media, because there is very much an issue with doom scrolling right now, and it's a fear thing. It's almost like an addiction thing, right? It's not actually an addiction, but it's a thing that our brain will look for, especially if we have an anxiety disorder, because our fear is the world is ending, right? And so our brain, in getting this like hit of cortisol from looking at something, is like, well, okay, let's look for other things. Let's look for more proof that the world is ending and that everything is bad. So we keep scrolling and we keep scrolling and we keep scrolling. This isn't good for your brain or for your mental health. Just generally, please stop doing that. But especially then if our expectation is that we can get off our phone and hang out with our partner and expect to feel available for sex, that's probably not going to happen, because there is so much stress and anxiety just living inside of your body that needs to go somewhere. You need to do something with it. So taking care of yourself doesn't necessarily look like having to be a meditation guru and sitting down and doing that 5 times a day. It can look like dancing around your house or having a good like screaming cry sesh in your car on the way to Taco Bell, right? This can look like FaceTime your friend and just being really bitchy about stuff for like 30 minutes or an hour. I don't know. This can look like spending time with your partner and doing any or all of those things, right? Self-care and really feeding into ourselves can look any number of different ways depending on what works for you specifically, what you're needing, and what's going on in your life. But I want to encourage you to get familiar with what those things are and then to practice them semi-regularly. Especially doing them with your partner is a great opportunity to build intimacy and connection, right? If at the end of the week, your routine with your partner is that you guys go get a little sweet treat together and talk about your fears and just be honest about where you're at and support each other, have a nice little hug or cry with your sweet dreams, that can do a number to ground your nervous system. I know that it sounds kind of silly, but it really is true that co-regulating ourselves and being honest about our difficulties, even when we don't have an answer for them, in community and in company is often very healing. So be honest about those things, practice those things, get familiar with those things, and be open to expressing that and to building that intimacy with your partner, because really the basis of a good sex life is a good intimate relationship with your partner. So for what it's worth, I also want to encourage you to practice a good sleep hygiene routine. This is a thing that I like to talk about, but I'm not good at. being mindful of the time that you go to bed, the circumstances around going to bed, maybe practicing distancing yourself from your phone or social media or what have you around bedtime can also go a long way in your actual sleep being truly restful and making your brain less while you're sleeping. So then when you wake up, you actually feel refreshed and ready to start a new day. So there are a lot of things that we can talk about as far as sex and intimacy are concerned. If you guys have questions, let me know. I can't answer things necessarily specifically to you because we don't do specific advice here. We can't therapize people over the internet, but I am happy to refer you to resources or things that might help you for sure. And also our community here is really cool. People here are very open and very kind and very respectful. So if you're new here, please be that way. But also if you want to be part of our Discord community, there's a link to that in the description as well. We have lots of wonderful folks there who have lots of wonderful conversations about many, many different things. And I would love to have you join the community. So link to that in the description. You can join at the $5 or above level. So thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, subscribe, and then you can share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday.